So what happened is, if let's say someone, you have a vote in a country, or let's say in a city, right? And someone after the election find that actually a hack happened. Can you still validate the election or not? If you look at the current system, you will be able to say, okay, this vote can be validated, this vote can be invalidated. But since you're in a blockchain and using the same software across, it means it's ever on and off. So that's what also a major problem that you have when talking about voting. Since you embed the same system across, if one vote is actually not respected, or there is a hack on it, you can assume that all of them can be compromised. And that's a major problem when you talk about voting system, is because of the nature of the blockchain. And that's the product we work with.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Takadao Talks. Thank you for joining us. And today we have with us Loic Falletta. Loic, thank you for being here today. And it's very, very nice to see you, actually. I think we've spoken before, but I've never seen you on video or even in person.
It's true.
Okay, so Loic, he is the founder of Yinkozi. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
All right, Yinkozi. He's a distinguished cybersecurity, or it is a distinguished cybersecurity company in the Middle East. With a dedication to impactful solutions, Loic has been instrumental in securing critical process in the UAE. He works on large and critical projects to secure online voting for a US party using blockchain. Loic's collaborations with central banks and governments blockchain initiatives underscore his practical expertise. As a speaker for the United Nations and large cybersecurity conferences, Loic shares insights on cybersecurity's global significance. And today we're really here to talk about a couple of things, namely cybersecurity in the blockchain space and how he is helping governments use the blockchain in cases like voting. Before we get started, Loic, tell us something about yourself personally.
Just tell you where I'm from, right? So I started hacking when I was 14 years old. The reason when I started is because all my friends were playing video game and I didn't have the money to buy video game. So I wanted to hack them to be able to play as well. So it started as a hobby. And then I figured out I was pretty good at it. So I started to publish when I was 15, 16. And I ended up really publishing a lot of magazines under a different name. That's why I paid for my study. Publishing in different science magazine.
So what do you mean publishing? You were hacking and then you're publishing
writing articles. So I started to be well known in the community by writing content when I was 16, 17 about hacking and how to. At that time was a different problem than today. At that time was not about this is Google this thing and find information. You didn't know where to find information. So the knowledge was about finding the book that is in a paper that's maybe from an old telco provider, and you got it like somewhere, like someone gave it to you, and then you share that, and that's how you were hacking things, by knowing how systems were working. So it was a different way. So at that time I was writing articles about hacking different things. So it's just, that's how it started. So then from there I really moved internationally, but yes.
We'll be right back after the break.
Takadao Talks brings you stories from around the world that will help you understand how crypto and Islamic finance can change our lives for the better. Subscribe and follow us to keep learning.
All my life, let's say, I've been trying to break things for a living.
I have my son Omar, who's 9 or 10. I know he's 10 now. He's also, we call him the engineer of destruction, because he just tries to break things all the time and put them back together. Okay, so this is a very interesting discussion, hacking. All right, so I saw this cartoon the other day, and they were showing what people think, what the general public thinks hacking is, and what hacking really is. So when you hear the word hacking, you're thinking, this very smart guy, computer genius. He's on the computer and it's him against the computer. And he's on a terminal application. He's typing against time to break some kind of a computer system. But the reality is like some guy finds another person's password on the floor and he goes and he breaks into his computer. So tell us, actually, for the people who are not in this space, what does it mean? What is the reality of hacking today? How do most hacks happen, and what do most hacks look like?
I think the first thing to understand when you talk about hacking, we need to talk about the capacity. So one fundamental aspect of hacking is the fact is really asymmetric. When you see a tank in the street, you can say, oh, the army is involved here for sure, because this is a strong weapon. When you see someone with a computer that maybe paid $200, you don't know the impact he can do on system. So the guy with a $200 computer can make damage in a company worth multi-million. And that's why I think the legend about hacking started, is the fact that you need to spend a lot of money to defense, and it doesn't cost you a lot to attack. So that's the first thing. The second thing is usually hacking happen because sometimes the people never think that system can be used in the other way that it's been designed. And that's the fundamental part. People always take the principle like, oh, it's been designed this way, let's use this way. But it's the same thing as saying like people will always follow the law. Well, they will follow the law unless they get caught. If they think they're not going to get caught, they will always try to go around. And it's the same thing with hacking as a high level. Technically, you have different things. It depends who you're facing, right? All the time, all hacking happen because people, for example, we use the same password everywhere. So someone will use the same password to log into one of his websites because he loves boats and this website has been hacked, but he's using the same password to connect to his corporate network. So if you hack his boat website and you got his password, then you will be able to access the corporate network. And such hacks are really hard to detect because someone just got connected. It's not like someone tried to get your password. It just used the normal path. And that's what makes it defense a bit hard. Things shifted recently for the last couple of years. Let's say until when I started in 2010, until 2010, hacking really with one person, you can have a lot of destructive power. So it means that you can really break entire system. All the system were exposed on the internet. It was really that kind of path when you really attack a company directly. That was the way that we hacking company, like you break the firewall, like you see in the movie, but technically just because they left it open and you just get in. It's like you open all the door and your windows, your house, like, well, someone got in. Yeah, you just got it. That's it.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah.
And the other aspect now since then is actually you never hack a company directly. You will send an email to someone and it will connect back to you. So you will make someone make a connection between his machine in his corporate network to you. And then you reverse the connection, then you can hack the rest of the network. And that's 90% of the hack. The other remaining 10% is mistakes. People use default password. People forget to leave like some administrative things online. So that will remain. The major change that happened, let's say, for the last 4 or 5 years is nation has been involved. And that changed the game a lot. Because nation have been involved means that they have a limited budget and they have started to be really creative about hack. And I don't know if it's cynical or not, but they also started to release tools on the market. Sometimes they release it publicly, or sometimes because they also got hacked, people release their tools. And that's in the way we realized that, yes, a lot of people were involved in the hacking community. So you have different level, individual isolated, a criminal group that just try to make money quickly, and then you have the national group. Then we can go more in detail if you want to know how to make money, but this is really the 3 type of group. So in a really high level, this is how hacking look like in 2023.
Yeah, very cool. So, okay, one of the reasons why people are very bullish on Bitcoin and why, you have Bitcoin maximalists is this idea that blockchains cannot be hacked. Now, not talking about smart contracts, but blockchains. And what they say all the time is, the Bitcoin blockchain, Ethereum blockchain has never been hacked. So can a blockchain be hacked? And if so, how?
Yeah, I mean, this question is always like asked in a wrong way. The thing is, if you take a chain, right? You take a chain, you're not gonna try to break the stronger part. You always try to break the weaker part because at the end of the day, you want to break the chain. So it doesn't matter if some part is really strong and some part are really weak. When you talk about people hacking crypto, for example, they never hack the crypto, they never hack the math, they hack the implementation of the crypto. Same thing happened on the blockchain. The blockchain protocol can be amazing and work really well, but what do you have in both hands? You have servers that can be hosted in Amazon, and you have wallet that people can have on the desktop or they can have on the mobile app when they store their key. So you will never hack the system itself. You will hack who's using them and when the information is stored. This idea of saying my protocol is the strongest in the world will make me secure, on the paper, yes, but in reality, it's not how hack happen. You need to always see the entire chain, and you will always attack the weakest point. And usually, is the person sitting between the chair and the computer. That's always been the weakest point that you attack all the time. And that's what's happening with blockchain. So yes, on the paper, it's never been hacked, but not for the reason we think. It's never been hacked because it's complicated to hack it because there is so many servers in the world, really. It just makes the hack really hard to scale. That's the main thing. And also because it's a simple blockchain. If you look at the way it looks like, it doesn't do that much things at the end of the day. It's a simple system, which is similar to exchanging money and get it. There is no apps, nothing complicated.
So
So that's
basically,
the
it's not
major difference.
profitable. Basically, it's not profitable to hack the main blockchain for hackers in the sense. So they would rather scale and do a hack that will be viral and everywhere than hacking a very complex things that will not bring ROI in the right way, I would say.
And let's be evil for a minute, right? So you're acting a crypto network, okay? If you hack a crypto network, you want this network to make money, okay? If you start hacking this network and you don't have time to do any kind of transfer to convert that to any currency, what will happen is the money you will get out of this crypto will be worth nothing because everybody will know that now it's been hacked. So the best way for you to do it is try to find the whales in this network and try to break the whale because these people will be more interesting for you because you will steal the token, be able to sell the token, and the network will keep going. So if you want to be pragmatic, it's actually more interesting as an attacker to attack user on a really profitable blockchain than attacking the blockchain itself. Unless, and this is what's happening in most of the hack, you attack a bridge. And that's usually why all the people that are attacking the blockchain network, they attack the bridge because when you have a bridge converting one currency to the other one, this is where you can make a lot of money quickly. Because if you can hack that bridge, you don't care if that bridge doesn't exist anymore. You just want to be in the middle to steal the money and leave. So that's the reason if you look at the hack for the last few years, they never attacked they tried, of course, but the big, large network, the strong one. They always try to attack like the bridge. And that's really something we've seen. Doesn't mean there's no vulnerability in another one, but that's an interesting target.
So for the listeners who are not very familiar, what is a bridge and why is it easier to hack than other protocols?
But the thing is, the bridge is it's pretty hard to secure as well. So because you have to write a smart contract in this case, and the smart contract need to manage different kind of situation. Like I don't use the money on this side. I want to check the value of this. So you start making something really complex, which is more prone to mistakes. And usually people are getting hacked in this blockchain network because on this bridge, this situation, because it's pretty hard to cover all the use cases. So what happened is when you look at the recent hack, they were not thinking about some scenarios or someone will send some money with like a negative wallet, that kind of things, and then you start doing things that you should not do. It's a similar things when you have, let's say, e-commerce website. If you look at e-commerce website, you have 4 steps, right? You choose what you want to have in your basket, then you put your address, then you go to payment and delivery. Payment is step 4. What if you jump from step 3 to step 5 directly? Well, hold on, I never planned that in my system. It's never been done this way. Yeah, but you can. You just have to jump to the right page at the end of the day. So for the system, you paid because now you're on the delivery page. And that's usually this kind of case that are not covered. And it's actually pretty hard to secure. And what makes this kind of a hack pretty big is because it's blockchain, it's once you have one problem, it scales to everything. So it's kind of a quickly create the problem of single point of failure. If that specific contract fail, everything will fail. So any other transaction that will happen here will be broken. So at the end of the day, having a decentralized approach to that kind of transaction creates like a massive impact, because if you can find a way to hack that node that actually have the same code everywhere, all of them will be compromised. That's what makes this hack really like a lot of impact. Like we're talking about $300 million plus for the latest one, for example.
Yeah.
I want to jump in. You know, since you've been into the industry for so many years now, I want to just to clarify the crypto or the Web3 community has been suffering with bad news and hack for the past 3-4 years. We've been hearing about them. I want you to snapshot the impact that this hack has in this community, particularly even translated in amount of money, versus different hack that have been caused by a regular hack in a Web2 community. And what is the difference in terms of damage, I would say? Because it seems that lately, when we talk about Web3 and we talk about the hack, is like at the end of the world. And they make it sounds like, wow, it's a huge. But in reality, I want to contextualize and put it back to the overall web world or Web2 world. If you can break it down.
We had bigger hack in the history. That for in India, I think the biggest one was worth $1 billion. The only difference here is also who's telling you that they've been hacked. When you talk about the blockchain and decentralized world, when it's visible quickly, if you see that at one point you see a major transaction, everyone can see it. So they can't hide usually when they've been hacked. So you can quickly see the impact. Hack happen in the world all the time. And some company really lost like a lot of money. But sometimes they don't tell you. They will not talk about it because that will ruin their reputation. They will rather put it they will not hide it. So that's also the one of the big things. The other part also is it's a new technology. So people all the time, when it's a new technology, they don't really know how it works. They're always a bit scared about what will happen next. So they understand the protocol, maybe they trust the protocol, but at the end of the day, a protocol moves much more slowly than a platform all the time. To give you an example, if you take email encryption, we've been knowing email encryption since last 30 years. Right? Is your email encrypted? No, they're still not encrypted. WhatsApp, they started to do like an end-to-end encryption for all the maybe 500 million users that they have. They did that in less than a year. So what happened is in the Web3, and you can see that directly, people will use platform. And they will use platform that they will trust, and the platform will be the entry point for the blockchain. That's what you have with OpenSea. That's what you have with all these APIs. So what happens is when you break up to this kind of a ecosystem, then the impact is massive, because then you have a lot of sub-blockchain that can be impacted by that. So you're breaking an ecosystem. A lot of people are scared about this Web3 attack because the impact quickly, because you don't have many platforms these days. You have 5 big ones, put it this way. So if one of these fall, then everything else can fall quickly. And that's it's always the misunderstanding about the Web3 is right now the Web3 is pretty limited at the end of the day in terms of which platform we can use. If today you put an NFT on OpenSea, and OpenSea decided that your NFT doesn't respect the term and condition of OpenSea, yes, in reality your NFT is still on the chain, but practically all wallets use OpenSea to display your NFT. So you will not be able to see your NFT in all the wallet that you will be using, even if you still own the NFT. So it creates kind of these things because platforms are leading the show right now. It's actually creating this problem when they fall, when they get hacked, the impact is massive. So this is what happened, and yeah, it's pretty logical. No one wants to run their own server. Like Nobody wants to run their own machine. And if you think about decentralized, if you want to be fully decentralized, it means that if I want to do a blockchain, it means I will run my own machine in my house to be able to be fully decentralized. But no one wants to do that. So you'd rather use the platform. And so if this platform gets hacked, then you lose everything. And that's usually why people are a bit scared of the Web3 hack more than the Web2.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. So moving on to actually, let's think about the use cases from your perspective, because you work a lot with banks and governments apparently now. What are the use cases for the blockchain that are being adopted by these very highly centralized institutions, moving to a blockchain which is, quote unquote, decentralized to some extent? What are they using it for, and why?
Well, in a sense, we should not forget that blockchain, in a nutshell, is a decentralized timestamp system, right? So you're decentralizing the timestamp. So that's really the nutshell of what it is. You have different timestamp in different position, and they can be in different places. The real use case I've seen that works in banks, it's for fraud detection. To detect different because you have a distributed timestamp that can activate at one point in the network, and you can check its validation at the end. So all kind of internal fraud, blockchain is actually pretty useful, because then you can use that validation of that payment, for example, and be sure that no one tampered it across his entire life in the IT system of a bank. These kind of usage of blockchain works really well. Everything else related to this project, when you try to bring people and you want to be able to change, or everything that requires some kind of social element, unless it's simple, unless it's really straightforward, and you really be clear about this blockchain does this, and it's not just this massive framework, works. But it's really, the problem arises all the time when, well, what if I want to do some changes? What if the law change? What if like the regulation change? And that happens all the time in the bank. What should I do? Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to kill that blockchain and recreate another one, because your rules will not apply and you will not reach consensus to apply these changes, because these changes will not be accepted by all the nodes. So you will end up having one authority that will do all these changes, where this is not blockchain anymore. And that's usually the outcome I'm seeing in many of these projects. They end up breaking the architecture of blockchain to say we do blockchain, but in reality, they're doing a centralized system.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, the blockchain and the not just the blockchain, but the idea of distributed ledgers in general doesn't really work for a centralized system, as you said, because it has to continually change. So how do you now maintain the code across all these different nodes if you have to continually change?
We'll be right back after the break.
We believe that the financial system is broken and that our banks and insurance companies don't have our best interests at heart. We've built Takadao to help us get together as a community to save, earn, and access credit. Join us today and discover how you can grow your savings while helping others. Takadao.io.
This is my opinion really here, but for me, blockchain is not compatible with any social system. That's really that's the problem. So then after
What do you mean by social system?
So every system, that social system that actually is dependent of either authority or law that's outside of the technological aspect. Legal, for example, is one of them. Or any system like say regulation, everything that's under regulation. All of the system, when there's any changes that can affect the way you're conducting business, that will not be any kind of compatibility. So the only thing it can work is if you create a system when in exchange between people, and you know you will stay in an area when you can create your own world, basically. But if you're dependent on an authority, when you don't have any control out of it, the only way to manage this blockchain is to break it and do it again. And all the products we've been involved, they always end up doing the same thing, which is they start with blockchain, and then they start doing this thing, and then there is a change in the regulation. So then they come back with the old system and they run both in the same time until they do changes. Because there is because at the end of the day, if you want to respect the blockchain rule, you should not be able to change the code as you please, or be coming back
Correct.
to the old way. So if you have to change the code because something else happened, this is not part of the blockchain. Or then you put like a system that will change the code, but then you come back to centralized. So that's what I'm seeing a lot of failure in these blockchain projects is always happen when they try to be too like, oh, we're going to change the way of people doing this and that. And that's pretty massive. The other part as well, and that's really complicated, and maybe we can join for the topic of the day for the voting system, is what we call the software independence. So what happens is if, let's say someone, you have a vote in a country, or let's say in a city, right? And someone after the election find that actually a hack happened. Can you still validate the election or not? If you look at the current system, you will be able to say, okay, this vote can be validated, this vote can be invalidated. But since you're in a blockchain and using the same software across, it means it's ever on and off. So that's what also a major problem that you have when you're talking about voting. Since you embed the same system across, if one vote is actually not respected, or there is a hack on it, you can assume that all of them can be compromised. And that's a major problem when you talk about voting system, is because of the nature of the blockchain. And that's the product we work with.
Loic, let's take it one step back because we try to understand what you mean. So how is the blockchain being used in voting systems today? Let's first try to understand the foundation of this.
So the product we've been involved with countries and with countries as well is everyone that is not in this country is kind of using it for online voting and to be able to provide the same level of trust than actually people that put the ballot ready. That's it. Or they're using a machine directly, like in the US is the case, they're using a machine and they vote. So they try to do that. The advantage of the choice of the blockchain is to, once you validated the identity of the user, you will be able to say that once it's been stamped by his mobile phone, for example, at that specific moment of time, so the timestamp, then it can't be modified on the chain. So if anyone on the network try to tamper any kind of vote, it will not be able to tamper it. And that's the reason why blockchain has been used, but at the end of the day, it's just an integrity checks, but you use that to be sure that no one can tamper. The problem with that approach and what we've seen with the voting system, it's great when you do it from a small amount of people, like you have one network for only 5,000 people that voting, and then you extend it. But when you go above, quickly you have to have some kind of peer validation. That's the essence of blockchain. Like if I'm taking your Bitcoin and I can check it with malware, I can say it's a real Bitcoin or not. That's the essence. But it means then, in essence, you might break the secrecy of the voting. Because if I can check...
Wait. Oh, hold on. Let me try to understand. Okay, so currently that the way they're using the blockchain is basically just saying we are publishing this chain of custody almost. We're just saying, okay, we know this vote took place here and at this time by this individual. But there isn't, multiple nodes that are verifying this, or there are still multiple nodes that are verifying this?
There are still multiple nodes that are verifying this. But we're talking about voting system. Again, it depends on the size, right? So if you're talking about a small election, it can be secured. You can have your own server. You can manage the chain end to end. You can have your different nodes. That's fine. That's technically pretty easy to manage. The problem starts to be complicated when you're talking about election when other countries want to tamper with. So how do you secure that? Because you don't have people are not physically in the room. So you can't control that. People are using the same system to vote in different positions. So, and it creates this problem when at the end, you have to be sure that people vote like that person really voted. And the other problem that you have as well is to be able to check that, you have to see what they voted for. That's the essence. You have to have the transparency. So if you want to see, like, I want to be sure that Movad voted, technically in the node, if I know his identifier on the chain, I will know who you voted for. It has to be this way because if you make it like encrypted, then it means there is an entity that will check. So then we're breaking again the blockchain. So if you want to know who, if everyone voted, it means then I can see that if I know that Movad was in this area at that specific time, and maybe I was next to him when he voted, I can go to the node server because it should be accessible. This is the essence of blockchain. And I will be able to see that in my area, these people voted. So in a sense, if you're using blockchain, you will break the secrecy and privacy. That's why we don't see
So,
blockchain voting everywhere yet.
So you essentially are saying there is no privacy on the blockchain. There is no way to create a system, at least today, where you can have both privacy and transparency
Usually
in
what
this
happens is,
context.
yeah, like what you have in Bitcoin is privacy by obscurity. Like if I want to know how much you have on your Bitcoin account, I need to know your wallet. So there is no link between your wallet unless I go, maybe if you have a hot wallet and I can contact Kraken or Binance, doesn't matter. I will know. But beside that, I will not know. So it's just because you're just a number. But the thing is, when you're talking about voting system, yeah, but you need to know at least, because you want to be sure it's a real person that voted. So then you will start doing system when you will say one person, one private key, one vote. So it means you have to identify that person on that chain. That's the essence of it. So it means if one day I can find a link between you and your key on the chain, I will know all your next votes. That's the essence of how it works. So that's the reason why voting is a thing with blockchain. It solves one tiny problem, but it doesn't solve the full problem of voting securely. It just solves the problem of, I want to be sure that when someone voted, no one can tamper his vote until we receive it and we can count it. That solves that specific problem, but doesn't solve the problem on its whole. So the people would say it does, usually because they invested into this, but the reality, it's actually more technically more complicated.
So aren't you doing this for governments and I think governments now? Isn't this part of what your company does?
We try. The thing is, we basically, the way we work, we try to be the middleman between the company that try to do this and the government try to apply this. So we try to help them to find the best way and something that can work. So usually they call us to see how is it possible to tamper with this? Is it possible to break that vote? And the answer, unfortunately, is most of the time yes. And that's the problem we've been facing. And that's the reason why you don't see voting system using blockchain everywhere. We involve many of these projects, but it's complicated to secure. Because at the end of the day, let's say you make it the blockchain really hard and solid. When you put your server, when on AWS, maybe on Azure, so then you put it on the cloud. Well, now we're talking about nation because you want to put that as a way for nation to vote. So when it means now, if I want to hack your blockchain, well, I'm going to hack it directly from the server side. I'm not going to waste my time in your protocol. So we come back to the same thing as the Bitcoin analogy. You can have the best protocol, the most secure, but people will always go to the weaker chain.
So very good insight. So now that we had a lot of questions regarding this, I want to know from somebody who's kind of the risk averse guy, technically, because
The
of your
risk
nature
averse hacker.
yeah, the risk averse hacker. This is the mindset of a hacker. It should be a risk averse but anyway, how do you see crypto? How do you personally, now the personal Loic, do you invest in crypto? Have you ever done anything? Have you looked at the technology? How do you feel about you personally and your engagement into this space, if I may say, if you want to share with us?
I think it's one of these things, obviously, for when you talk about cryptocurrencies, mostly like it's basically playing for me with like kind of playing with it. But as a technology or what's behind, there is only few projects that I'm really interested into. For me, the one usage of blockchain that's been neglected is fault tolerance. I think it's pretty massive. They started to use that for satellites, for example, to detect if something can fail because it can do integrity checks between different satellites. So that kind of usage, when you can compare integrity between nodes, that's for me is really interesting. And that can fly because then you can manage multiple drones, you can do different kind of things. So this kind of application I'm really interested into. The crypto itself, at the end of the day, technically, it's really it's pretty straightforward. So you have interesting thing that people try to do. I like this idea of bringing more the outside world to the blockchain. I think the product that you have with Link, for example, for me are really interesting because you can start really developing different things. But beside the financial interest as an asset, for me, crypto, you need to have like some specific use case when it can be applied. Like, for example, what you guys are doing, I think is really interesting because it's one of these use cases when it facilitates something that was actually pretty complicated before. So you can be a facilitator and automate a process that will require a lot of checks. So I'm making it as a whole a way to have the entire chain and have all single point just in few clicks. For me, that is really interesting. That's that kind of application of using blockchain as a way to automate a process that will take different companies or society, different validation. Yes, this kind of application definitely. But as a crypto money, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not in my 20s anymore to to be really way too excited about it. I think I'm more interested about what's happening around it, what kind of problem it can solve to make the world a bit safer. That's really more I'm interested about, really.
Yeah, so this is very interesting because everything you've said so far just reinforces the idea in my head that the blockchain is really a peer-to-peer, or it's designed to be a peer-to-peer network, and it continues to be a peer-to-peer network. And the best use case for it is a peer-to-peer network, because as you've said, they're trying to do all these things on the corporate, banking, government levels, use this technology, and it's incompatible somehow because it just doesn't make sense when you're trying to do a centralized activity in a decentralized way. So this is the thing that I'm thinking, like you said, what is beautiful about the Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin blockchain is the simplicity. Like it does nothing except, keep track of the accounts, basically. It's like a ledger. And that makes it difficult to penetrate, even though, of course, you can attack individual nodes, but you can never get the entire structure. It makes it difficult to hack. And it goes back down to the peer-to-peer, which I think is really cool. Yeah, so maybe it isn't the most exciting for somebody like you because you're like, there's no business to be done in this peer-to-peer space, but it reinforces the narrative that this was built to be an alternative to the centralized systems.
No, it is. It's for me. I'm interested about the peer-to-peer aspect because I want to be sure that people are safe, basically, when they do any kind of transaction. So for me, it just means then if the network works really well, you want to be sure that the endpoint, which is usually like the mobile application using this kind of system, is actually safe. Because you want to be sure that even if the phone is compromised, this app will never be compromised. So, or data will never be compromised. And if you do that, then if you trust then the network and the network is secure, then actually you can really trust that system, probably more than the notes that you have in your pocket. And that kind of goal for me, I'm really far more interesting because then it's really, like you said, a proper peer-to-peer system network. And I don't see any other, well, like really, if you keep it this way, as long as it's simple, straightforward, then the way to hack it will be hard. So people will hack around. And if they have to hack around, which is happening with blockchain, with Bitcoin, sorry, it means you're actually doing a pretty good job with your chain itself. Because if people have to go on the both sides to be able to break you, it means then the chain itself actually is pretty good. So you just deflect them. It's always the same thing about security. You don't want to be the easy target. You want to be the hard one because people usually they don't spend that much time on your case because there's so many people like you that they can hack. So the same thing in the web too. So usually they're scanning because they try to find the weakest target that they can get money out of them really quickly. And that's what you want. You want to be the hardest target to get.
No, I was going to say, well, looking forward to what's going to happen in the next couple of years or the next decade or so, where there will be increasing adoption of, I would say, the peer-to-peer side of the blockchain, crypto and things like that. What are best practices for companies like us and for people who are building on the blockchain in terms of security?
The thing is, always the same thing, and it's going to be a bit stupid, but it's just always try to keep things simple and lean. Don't try to over-engineer things. The problem we have with usually engineer, they always try to over-engineer problems. So because of the pleasure of having something which is over-engineers. But sometimes you just want something that works properly, well, and doesn't need to do all these fancy things. So when you come to code that you can't change much, you have to see it as really, it has to be as simple as possible, everything in the chain. And then everything else that you do, you have to see the security as an end-to-end problem, not just a chain problem. The blockchain gives you one level of insurance, which is integrity, fantastic, but doesn't give you what happened on the endpoint, like who's going to use, for example, your app and how your server are protected. But for everything that happened in the code that you can't change much, as simple as possible and as machine to machine as possible. Again, the problem is always what's happening between the computer and the chair. So if you remove the friction that you have here and you make it everything like automatically deployed, just a machine coming to another machine, it's really easy to spot if someone is trying to break into your system because you will have to pretend to be that machine. And that's pretty easy to secure. So lean and more machine to machine would be the best way. And then try
and
to
eliminate human beings is what you're saying. Eliminate
reduce.
people from the equation.
Yeah, try to reduce. And the new technology these days, really, there is amazing framework where you can make everything auditable as well. And that should be thing as a design. So we design a product these days, you can make everything as code. What's amazing about that approach is I mean, everything is there and it will look like this in production. Usually what happens in security, you have a problem of not knowing what's happening there. You're doing some code and it's getting deployed, but you don't know that the guy connected and had something that no one was aware and he left the company, and it's a mess. So what you're coding should be what's in production. And that's full visibility on that point. It's key for me to be able to develop secure software and actually scale up.
So we're going to move a little bit on that. I know you just came back from France. You had a very nice and cool vacation. I guess you had like maybe 20 degrees less than what you're having now in Dubai.
Easily.
So easily. So glad to see that you enjoy a little bit your vacation. Now you're in Dubai, and I know that you're very well connected with the ecosystem. You know, you have the like of Gurav, one of our common friends, who's also a very good has a very good podcast, and I will have him on the podcast soon. So tell us a little, and he's really like into Web3, fintech Web3 as well. Tell us a little bit about this trend. What's happening in Dubai? Is it really happening? These Web3 things? Do you see a new internet happening? Like everybody's talking about the way technology and the Web3 metaverse and all these things happening now is what used to be in 1998. The internet was at its beginning. Can you please share with me, because I know you hang out with people, try to stay up to the game. So tell me a little bit what's happening there in Dubai and if it's really happening as it is.
Yeah, look, in all technological innovation, usually there is two main drivers. It's selling ads or working with financial. So everything regarding like selling, marketing, the Web3, the new way of doing some new kind of marketing, new kind of automation, the Web3, yes, it's trending and it will push many things. Fintech is getting a lot of traction locally, but I don't think the bank so far mature enough to go fully in that level. I think they're doing it step by step. They're integrating things slowly. What I think will change in the next few months is now we start seeing that the metaverse doesn't provide like the promises that people will believe in. It was $30 billion in investments in total. It's insane. And the income right now, I think we only 470 million. So it's not that crazy good. And people were really dreaming about this link between metaverse and Web3. My fear is if everyone that invested in metaverse see now that actually is not getting as big as expected, it will impact over technology as well. For me, the main problem that we have with Web3 right now is we don't have enough platform to compete with. So it's too centralized in 2 or 3 platforms. Infura is one of them that actually concentrate all the nodes. Like you can connect to the node directly, but use them as an API to connect to the rest of the nodes. If you're using even MetaMask, it's decentralized, but technically it does query in OpenSea, it does query in Infura. So we're dependent on this big platform, which is not a bad thing, but they're getting too big now. So we need probably more innovation in the kind of developing this platform for the Web3 that can probably will drive more innovation, because right now they decide which project they're taking. And that's, for me, it's a bit of a concern. But as an ecosystem here, I think fintech is pushing really hard. What's slowing things down? It's always the same thing, but it's the same problem everywhere. Is the talent pool, the people, the entrepreneur that actually can develop and strive in this technology and do the tech itself. So people will be more here for the investment side, but the dev itself, I can see like it's some is not there yet, in my opinion.
So the talent pool, you mean, we see a lot of young people actually trying to, look, we're in the Web3 space, and I'm receiving on a daily basis CV of very talented developer who want to understand the space, who have been starting to. So we see a lot of engagement in that level. Second, I mean, of course, but you need thousands of developers to build actually in this future technology. The other interesting thing that I see happening as well is that the leapfrog of the African community. 80% of Africans have no bank account, and it's expensive to get a bank account. It's expensive to get a micro insurance. It's expensive to get a loan, to get anything. I mean, they cannot get access to anything. And we know that the African population is the youngest population of the world, will contribute maybe for 30% of the new population of the world. And they are really into, using products that are proper use case. In the case of my own experience, I see a lot of Africans wanted to be paid in cryptocurrency. When I tell them, how do I pay you for doing this website design or whatever, like, send me crypto. I'm like, how do you get it out? That's my business. Just send me crypto and I'll figure it out. So, and the like of M-Pesa now, trying to look at an integration with cryptocurrency. How do you see the future when you see a huge young population adopting to cryptocurrency as it is, getting paid that way? Do you think they're going to leapfrog the entire, technology and become the builder of the future if they are the one using for the use case? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think there is two things here. The first is about like the in Africa, what's happening. I know that pretty well because there is a 5 large network in terms of mobile money in Africa, and we check the security on 3 of them. So I know like really the way it works technically right now, and yeah, they're solving the problem that is really hard to get a bank account, but it's easy to get a phone, and it's easy to use credit. So what happened is they're using like telco credit to buy things. You can buy like tuitions and things like that. So the telco credits become a currency. So becoming a currency for mixing with cryptocurrency, it's one step, but it needs probably the authorization of all the telco. So the telco can really be leading this kind of transformation. The only problem that I'm seeing with Africa, and that's why crypto for them is great, is the cross-border payment. It's getting harder and harder to be able to do payment from overseas and different countries. So as crypto payments, it solved that problem. But it always comes to the same thing is, but you have the crypto now. What do? You still have to convert it to your local currency to be able to pay for things, which is always the tricky part of Africa. So that's for that part. For the talent pool, I think every engineer, everyone being involved in different projects is as good as the hardest problem you solve. So they need to be exposed to more problems that they have to solve locally. And this is how you create a talent pool. It's not about the education, it's about exposing yourself to complexity. And that's something that can be driven by different things. It can be driven by government can do it, some large corporation do it, and you have to. This is for me the missing part. Usually, people see like, but they can code, they're young, they can innovate. They need to be exposed, and usually the exposure is usually what's missing. Expose them to more problems, make them solve things. Don't try to make them learn code about focusing on what everyone did for the last 20 years. Give them complex problem. Give them something. Make them try to think that actually it will work better if we do it together. Instead of solving myself, maybe it will be better. Let's do it at 5. Then we can split the work. Just to already have this mentality that's actually, it works better if you split the work. And that exposure, I think, is really the missing part. And if we expose them to more of the problem and they can solve them, then we will get the talent pool that we would dream of, really. I'm also getting a lot of people wanting to get in the field, but each time you ask them a question about how they will solve sometimes a problem that's not even related to that, they're blocking because they're already focusing on give me the rules on what you're trying to solve, and I will give you a solution. But as we all know here, on your entrepreneurship, you jump from the plane and you have to make your parachute on your way down. That's the way it works. So if you don't know how to adapt and solve problem quickly, then you can lose quickly. And that's for me the missing part. And I hope with this talk, with everything, I'm trying to be engaged as well, giving this awareness and this exposure of you can see the problem in another way and try to be pragmatic. Don't dream of, change things. Just try to understand that problem in a proper way and try to solve it as something that doesn't scale first. And that will make you like someone that can innovate later. That's my opinion.
This has been a very interesting conversation. I think it's good to wrap up here. Thank you so much for having, really enlightened us on a lot of things. If somebody wants to reach out to you and wants to engage your company to do some work, how can they do this?
The best way would be LinkedIn, I think. You can go on Loic Falletta on LinkedIn, and then you can reach me directly. That would be probably the easy way.
Great. Thank you so much, Loic.